In the desolate, windswept expanses surrounding Dodge City in the unforgiving year of 1874. An event unfolded within the walls of a remote ranch house that would forever scar its inhabitants. Elias, a rancher whose hands bore the calluses of a relentless life on the Kansas plains, stood rooted to the spot, his rugged features etched with a disbelief far deeper than mere exhaustion. His sister, Sarah, lay weakened yet alert on a simple cot, her eyes mirroring the terror that had just seized the room. The silence that had filled the cramped space during the arduous hours of labor was abruptly shattered, not by a cry of new life, but by the midwife's piercing, guttural gasp. It was a sound stripped of professional composure, raw and profoundly horrified, echoing off the wooden beams of the humble dwelling. Before them lay two newborns, not the pristine bundles of joy expected, but tragically malformed, their tiny bodies bearing severe deformities that were undeniable and shocking to behold. The seasoned midwife, who had witnessed countless births in the challenging frontier, recoiled, her face contorted in a silent scream. Her horrified reaction was more eloquent than any words, a visceral confirmation of the unspeakable truth that had been whispered only in the shadows of Elias and Sarah's hearts: the illicit nature of the twins' paternity. This sudden, brutal unveiling sealed their darkest secret, transforming what should have been a moment of hopeful beginnings into one of profound despair. Any faint flicker of future happiness or the dream of building a family's wealth on the burgeoning frontier was extinguished by this grim reality. The joy that new life typically brings was replaced by a crushing burden, and the wisdom to comprehend such a profound tragedy or to navigate its moral complexities seemed utterly unattainable. This horrifying secret, born in the isolation of the plains, now weighed heavily upon them. What unforgiving path awaited Elias, Sarah, and their tragically marked children in the harsh world of 1874 Dodge City? Their lives, entwined by a forbidden love and its devastating consequences, were now irrevocably bound to this bleak fate. Curious to know what happens with this family? Subscribe and leave your like. Years before the tragic arrival of their twins, the desolate expanse of the Kansas plains had quietly sculpted the lives of Elias and Sarah. Their homestead, a lone sentinel against the vast, unforgiving sky, was a world unto itself, isolated from the bustling currents of nascent Dodge City. Here, far from the critical gaze of society, their childhood unfolded, marked by an unshakable proximity that was both a blessing and, eventually, a curse. They were each other's sole, constant companion, their laughter echoing across endless fields, their quiet moments filled with an understanding that transcended mere words. This unique environment, devoid of external distractions or other intimate relationships, cultivated a bond of unparalleled intensity. As children, their connection was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in solitude, a simple, pure affection that seemed boundless. They found a profound, if innocent, happiness in their shared existence, drawing strength and a peculiar form of contentment from their mutual reliance. As the years matured them from children to young adults, the innocence that once defined their relationship began to subtly shift, imperceptibly at first, then with an accelerating force. The deep affection they harbored for each other, born of necessity and nurtured by isolation, deepened into something profoundly more complex, something forbidden. It was a love that defied societal norms, a dangerous current beneath the surface of their sibling bond. They were tethered not just by blood, but by an emotional dependency that had no outlet save for each other. In the quiet evenings, under the vast, indifferent starlit sky, their shared glances lingered, their touches became more deliberate, charged with an unspoken longing. This burgeoning desire was terrifying, yet undeniably compelling. They experienced fleeting moments of intense joy, a strange kind of liberation in the privacy of their secluded world, as if they had discovered a hidden wealth of feeling unknown to others. However, this nascent passion was inextricably woven with a nascent guilt, a silent knowledge that whispered of transgression. There was no external wisdom to guide them, no elder to offer counsel, only the echoing silence of the plains. Their love, as potent as it was a secret burden. It began as a whisper, then grew into a roaring silence that filled the space between them. Every shared glance, every stolen touch, added another thread to the intricate tapestry of their forbidden affection, a love that promised immense joy but delivered an even greater weight of culpability. They were slowly, inextricably, becoming entangled in a web of their own making. A web spun from the threads of devotion, profound secrecy, and the insidious tendrils of burgeoning guilt. Their shared existence, once a source of simple happiness, now bore the seeds of an impending tragedy built upon a foundation of undeniable, yet profoundly dangerous, love. The quiet calm of the Kansas plains, once a comforting blanket for Elias and Sarah, shattered the moment the undeniable truth settled upon them. Sarah was pregnant. A cold dread, far more chilling than any winter wind, swept through their isolated ranch. The initial shock gave way to a wave of pure, unadulterated panic that clawed at their throats. This was no ordinary joy, no blessing to be celebrated. It was a ticking time bomb, a horrifying consequence of their forbidden love. The very thought of discovery sent tremors through their bodies, erasing any lingering semblance of past happiness they might have clung to. They knew, with a certainty that chilled them to the bone, that the world, particularly the judgmental eyes of Dodge City, would never understand, let alone forgive. Their only option, a desperate, terrifying one, was to hide it. Every aspect of their lives, once governed by the rhythms of ranching, now revolved around an elaborate, suffocating charade. Sarah began to withdraw, her once vibrant presence shrinking within the confines of their small home. Public appearances, once infrequent necessities, became unthinkable risks. Elias fabricated stories about her needing rest, about a vague illness, explanations that felt thin and fragile even to their own ears. The ranch, their haven, transformed into a dual-edged sword. It was their refuge, a place where their secret might remain insulated from prying eyes. Its remoteness, once valued for its peace, now served as their most vital shield. Yet it also became their prison. The vast, open skies seemed to mock their confinement, the endless horizons a cruel reminder of the freedom they had forfeited. Each creak of the floorboards, every distant rider, every shadow cast by the setting sun became a source of intense anxiety. The fear of discovery was a relentless companion, a suffocating weight that pressed down on every waking moment. It consumed their thoughts, their conversations, even their silent contemplation. They became masters of deception, their daily routines meticulously orchestrated to avoid suspicion. Food provisions were ordered in larger quantities, explaining Sarah's absence from town. Clothes, once a simple matter, became a careful calculation of concealment. There was no room for error, no space for spontaneity. The joy of life, the simple pleasures of the ranch, withered under the immense pressure. They lived in a constant state of heightened alert, their nerves frayed and exposed. The wisdom that might have guided different choices in the past felt like a distant, irrelevant concept now. All that mattered was survival, the desperate, clawing need to keep their secret buried, lest it destroy them entirely, along with any faint hope of future wealth in terms of peace or reputation. The future seemed bleak, devoid of any genuine happiness or profound joy, replaced by an unending cycle of fear and concealment. The Kansas sky, usually a canvas of endless blue, transformed into a maelstrom of dark, churning clouds. A tempest, fierce and relentless, descended upon the isolated ranch, mirroring the turmoil within its walls. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled like a banshee, as if the elements conspired to underscore the anguish inside. Sarah's labor had begun hours ago, long and agonizing, far more brutal than Elias or Mrs. Gable had anticipated. The flickering lamplight cast dancing shadows that seemed to magnify every contraction, every strained breath Sarah took. Elias, pale and helpless, clutched his sister's hand, his heart pounding with a rhythm that mimicked the thunder. He murmured reassurances, words that felt hollow even to him as Sarah's cries grew more desperate. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and fear, a palpable weight that pressed down on them all. Mrs. Gable, a woman who had witnessed countless births, usually carried an air of calm wisdom, her hands steady and her gaze knowing. But as the first twin emerged into the dimly lit room, a gasp, sharp and involuntary, tore from her throat. It was not a sound of relief or happiness, but one of pure, unadulterated horror. Elias' eyes, wide with a terrible dread he had fought to suppress, fixated on the tiny, fragile form and then on the midwife's ashen face. The truth, ugly and undeniable, clawed its way into the light, revealing itself in the child's twisted limbs and asymmetry that defied any natural order. A wave of sickness washed over him, a cold dread far worse than any physical pain. The room, which should have been filled with the promise of new life, was suddenly suffocating, tainted by this unforeseen tragedy. Before Elias could fully process the horrifying reality, Sarah's body convulsed again, and a second wail, weaker than the first, joined the macabre symphony. This twin, too, bore the cruel marks of their lineage, a mirroring of deformities that left no room for doubt. Mrs. Gable, regaining a semblance of professional composure, though her hands still trembled, wrapped the infants in blankets. Her eyes met Elias for a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement of a secret now shared, a destiny irrevocably sealed. The wealth of joy they had imagined for their children evaporated, replaced by a crushing weight of sorrow. The midwife's silence, heavy and deliberate, became their prison, a pact born of shock. Dreams of happiness, once a guiding light, dimmed to a flicker, leaving them in despair. The wisdom of hindsight offered no comfort, only bitter regret. The initial, fleeting pity that briefly rippled through Dodge City regarding the rancher's twins quickly evaporated. A brief murmur of sympathy, small anonymous gestures, soon gave way to a relentless tide of whispered conjecture. The wide-open plains, while seemingly boundless, couldn't contain the community's prying eyes. News, twisted and magnified, swept rapidly from homestead to saloon, leaving a trail of unsettling questions. Cautious compassion, once present, curdled into a cruel and insatiable curiosity, fueled by morbid fascination with the forbidden. People began to link the children's deformities directly to an unspeakable act, a perceived sin. The town's lack of wisdom was evident, replacing understanding with harsh judgment, fostering an environment devoid of simple joy for the family. Faces that once offered polite regard now averted their gaze or fixed upon Elias and Sarah with chilling, knowing stares. The very air around them grew thick with unspoken accusations. There was no shared happiness in their presence, only an uncomfortable silence or abrupt, chilling whispers. The warmth of neighborly connection, a valuable social wealth in such isolated lives, solidified into an impenetrable wall of condemnation. Ostracism became their constant shadow. Invitations to community gatherings ceased entirely. Tradesmen, once reliable, now found convenient excuses to avoid the ranch, their services mysteriously unavailable. Children were strictly warned away, robbing the twins of simple childhood joy and companionship. Elias, whose broad shoulders were accustomed to the land's burdens, now bore the crushing weight of the town's scorn. Sarah, her spirit already frayed, found every public outing a fresh torment. Each trip into Dodge City for supplies became an agonizing gauntlet of averted eyes and pointed fingers. Each glance a new wound, eroding their last remnants of social standing and any perceived communal wealth. They retreated further, their ranch transforming from a simple home into an absolute, isolated sanctuary. The vast, empty plains surrounding them now mirrored the profound emptiness of their social existence, their only companions the silent animals and the land. The once vibrant hues of their lives faded under the pervasive gray of societal judgment. They were now prisoners on their own property, surrounded by a world that adamantly refused to acknowledge their very humanity. The immense burden of this relentless ostracism pressed down with an unbearable weight, forcing them to confront the stark reality of their new, isolated lives. There was no escape from the town's cruel verdict, only the grim acceptance of a life lived on the absolute fringes, forever marked by a secret the community believed it had unearthed. The very air hummed with judgment, a constant reminder of their unforgivable transgression in Dodge City. The air on the isolated Kansas ranch, once a sanctuary, now hung thick with an oppressive silence, a palpable weight that pressed down on Elias and Sarah. The whispers from Dodge City had indeed reached them, carried on the wind like a chilling omen, transforming the fleeting pity of a few into the cruel, unwavering judgment of many. Their retreat from the town had been complete, a self-imposed exile that only amplified the suffocating burden they carried. Every sunrise brought not the promise of a new day, but the stark realization of their predicament, deepening the lines of despair etched upon their faces. The very ground they walked on seemed to absorb their misery, offering no comfort, only a stark reflection of their internal turmoil. Elias, the rancher whose strength had always been his defining trait, found himself hollowed out by a guilt so profound it gnawed at his very core. He saw the twins, his children, his nephews, and a cold dread would seize him. Their deformities, a constant, vivid reminder of their illicit origins, fueled his self-condemnation. He replayed every moment leading to their union with Sarah, searching for a turning point, a decision unmade, a whisper of wisdom he had ignored. The love that had once felt so powerful, so inevitable, now seemed a dangerous, destructive force. He questioned the very nature of his affection for Sarah, wondering if it had been true love or merely the desperate craving of lonely souls, blossoming into something monstrous. He watched her, a woman whose spirit was equally crushed, and a heavy sorrow settled in his chest. The ranch, his life's work, which once represented freedom and possibility, had become nothing more than a cage for their shared sorrow, its wide-open spaces suddenly feeling constricting and inescapable. Sarah fared no better. Her heart, once brimming with an innocent, if forbidden, joy in Elias' presence, was now a desolate landscape. Motherhood, which should have brought unparalleled happiness, was instead clouded by a relentless, crushing guilt. She looked at her infants, their tiny, vulnerable forms, and the stark reality of their physical challenges was a mirror to her own deep-seated shame. Had her yearning for companionship, her desperate need for connection in the vast emptiness of the plains, blinded her to the catastrophic consequences. She had believed their love was a secret, a private treasure, but its fruit was now a public testament to their transgression, visible for all, even those far away, to implicitly judge. The idea of wealth, not of money, but of a simple, untroubled family life, a future for her children free from the shadow of their birth, seemed an impossible dream, forever beyond their grasp. The bond with Elias, once her everything, felt tainted not by the love itself, but by the devastating outcomes. It was a shared prison now, built from their choices. The simple, repetitive rhythm of ranch life, once comforting, now only served to underscore their internal strife. Each chore, each silent meal, each long, empty evening amplified the chasm that had opened between them, a chasm of unspoken recriminations and unendurable grief. Their love, born of isolation and deepened by mutual dependence, was now buckling under the immense weight of its terrible progeny. They were two souls adrift in a sea of despair, tethered together not by affection, but by the overwhelming, shared burden of their secret and its devastating revelation. The vast, indifferent sky above them seemed to offer no solace, only an endless expanse mirroring the emptiness they felt inside. They were trapped, not just by the physical isolation of the ranch, but by the inescapable grip of their own hearts, bleeding from the wounds of their forbidden passion. The ranch house remained steeped in Elias and Sarah's profound grief and guilt. Each glance at their fragile twins brought fresh remorse, imprisoning their parents in fear. Their world, a desolate island of sorrow, consumed by their forbidden love's consequences. They saw only tragedy. Amidst this isolation, an old, weathered cowboy, Elias, moved with the land's rhythm. He had served Elias' family for decades, a man of few words but deep observation. His gnarled hands held gentle strength, his aged eyes missed little. Unlike judgmental townsfolk, Elias offered no condemnation, carrying a quiet wisdom understanding true acceptance, his presence a subtle anchor in their emotional turmoil. One late afternoon, Elias found Elias in the barn, slumped in despair. After a long silence, Elias spoke, his voice raspy. "The land don't judge, son. It just is. Folk. Folk are just folk. The sun always rises again." He added, "There's a true wealth in seeing the dawn, a simple joy in good earth under your feet. These little ones, they're a part of that dawn. They just need a different kind of sunshine." These words, delivered without pity, began to chip away at Elias and Sarah's emotional fortress, hinting at a new truth and potential for happiness. Silas' focus was life's inherent value, finding quiet happiness amidst hardship. He saw past deformities and perceived sin to the children, vulnerable beings deserving care. His wisdom and acceptance showed them genuine human connection didn't demand perfection. His compassion was profound strength, revealing that even in shadows, a glimmer of joy could exist. Acknowledging their children's humanity was invaluable, marking the first crack in their despair, suggesting a path toward peace beyond suffering. The wisdom shared by the old ranch hand finally resonated deep within Elias and Sarah. His non-judgmental insight pierced their despair, offering a crucial path forward. For too long, guilt and fear had overshadowed everything, blinding them to their children's innate worth. Now, a profound realization stirred. Their twins were not symbols of sin, but innocent beings deserving of boundless love and protection. This glimmer of happiness ignited a powerful, undeniable resolve. A significant shift began to occur. Self-pity gave way to a tangible purpose, to fight actively for their children's well-being. They started seeing beyond physical deformities, recognizing the vulnerable lives entirely dependent on them. This wasn't about seeking societal acceptance. It was solely about building a future, however modest, for their offspring. This newfound clarity, a true wealth of spirit, became their guiding force, transforming their sorrow into focused determination. The ranch itself began its transformation into a sanctuary. Elias, driven by this clear purpose, worked tirelessly to fortify its boundaries. He built a true haven, a safe space for the twins, shielding them from the world's cruel whispers. Sarah, inspired by his dedication and her burgeoning maternal instincts, nurtured their isolated world, creating an environment infused with warmth and genuine joy. They sought not material wealth, but an invaluable richness, a home built on unwavering commitment and deep affection. This shared endeavor, this absolute dedication to their children, began mending their fractured relationship. The love once tainted by guilt now found a purer, stronger expression in their united front. No longer just two individuals burdened by a secret, they became a formidable partnership. Their focus sharpened and priorities decisively shifted. They learned, with quiet wisdom, to prioritize loving and protecting their twins above everything else. This was a silent, yet powerful defiance against a condemning world, affirming their children's intrinsic value. They dedicated themselves entirely to understanding the twins' unique needs, finding deep contentment in every small comfort and sign of development. Each tiny milestone, each flicker of recognition brought quiet celebration. This wasn't the boisterous joy of typical families, but a resilient happiness born of adversity. They were building something precious and enduring, something that transcended their physical reality. This became their true wealth, measured in the strength of their family bond and the unwavering commitment to their children's very existence. In their isolated sanctuary, they redefined family, driven by a love that now sought only to protect and cherish unconditionally. The two children, often huddled together in a quiet corner of the isolated ranch house, bore the undeniable marks of their difficult birth. Their physical forms were distinct, yet their shared experience forged an unbreakable, silent understanding between them, a bond so profound it seemed to transcend ordinary communication. They moved in sync, their gazes often meeting, conveying a language only they truly comprehended. An inherent, almost ethereal innocence about them, a purity untainted by the harsh judgments of the outside world, shone through. Their laughter, though infrequent and soft, was a delicate sound, a fragile melody that sometimes echoed through the silent home, bringing unexpected warmth. Elias and Sarah, perpetually burdened by their secret and its societal shadow, found themselves drawn into this private world their children had created. Observing them became a silent ritual, a daily act of profound contemplation for the parents. They watched their children's simple interactions, a small hand instinctively reaching to comfort the other, a quiet sigh mirrored by a sympathetic murmur. In these moments, Elias and Sarah began to uncover a new kind of existence, where superficialities faded. The despair consuming them gradually gave way to cautious discovery. Each day offered new, minute observations that, strung together, painted a picture of resilience and an unexpected form of happiness. The children, despite physical challenges, possessed an innate joy manifesting in the simplest acts, the rustle of leaves, a sunbeam on their faces, their parents' quiet presence. For Elias and Sarah, this slow revelation was like discovering a hidden wealth, not of gold, but of spirit. They saw the world through their children's eyes, unburdened by prejudice, and began shedding their own burdens. It was a profound shift. They learned to value small triumphs, unscripted moments of connection, and the quiet comfort of their unique family. The usual benchmarks of success now seemed distant. Instead, a deeper, more enduring wisdom permeated their lives, teaching them true richness resided in unconditional love and acceptance. This understanding allowed them to perceive beauty in unexpected places and solace in their shared, isolated reality. Their children's innocent, trusting gazes offered a daily reminder that the greatest treasures were intangible, woven into the fabric of their shared lives. The ranch, once a place of confinement, slowly transformed into a sanctuary where love, in its most unconventional form, was nurtured and celebrated, defying the world that had cast them out away from the relentless, piercing gaze of Dodge City. A profound quiet settled over the ranch, no longer a place of suffocating secrecy, but a true sanctuary. Elias and Sarah, once haunted by the specter of their forbidden love and its devastating consequences, began to breathe again within the protective confines of their isolated world. The ranch, initially a cage built of fear, slowly transformed into a haven forged by a fierce, undeniable love. The very air seemed to hold less of the despair that had once clung to it, replaced by a gentle hum of quiet contentment. Their days were no longer consumed by the desperate need to hide or the crushing weight of judgment. Instead, a new rhythm emerged, dictated by the needs and innocent joys of their children. Elias found quiet solace in daily chores, the physical labor grounding him, allowing his mind to wander less to past regrets and more to the present. Sarah, too, discovered surprising strength in nurturing, finding a purity in motherhood that transcended the circumstances of conception. The laughter of the twins, though sometimes soft and muted, became the most precious melody, a constant reminder of the life they were fighting to protect and cherish. Their perspective on life had undergone a fundamental shift, shedding external definitions of success and happiness. True riches, they now understood with profound wisdom, were not found in societal approval or material possessions, but in the deep, unwavering connection they shared as a family. The wealth they accumulated was not measured in dollars, but in moments of shared peace, in the children's small victories, and in the resilient bond that had withstood unimaginable pressures. A deep, abiding joy began to bloom in their hearts, a quiet, internal happiness that society might never comprehend but was undeniably real. They no longer yearned for a life outside their ranch. The peace they found here, far from critical eyes, was more valuable than any acceptance the world could offer. Their focus had narrowed to the essential: raw, unadulterated love for their children and for each other, a love born of sin but refined by suffering into something pure. Every day, they consciously chose to rebuild their lives, brick by painstaking brick, with resilience as their mortar and unconditional love as their foundation. The meaning of their existence shifted from avoiding shame to embracing a unique, quiet dignity, forging a path defined not by what they lost, but by what they chose to create. This ranch, once a symbol of their downfall, had become the ultimate testament to their enduring strength, to the profound acceptance they found within their extraordinary family. The secluded ranch, once a place of despair, slowly became a quiet sanctuary for Elias, Sarah, and their unique children. Time etched deep understanding onto their faces, replacing initial fear with enduring strength. Dodge City's harsh judgments receded, becoming distant echoes. Their world had shrunk, yet within, a universe of unconditional love and acceptance blossomed. They learned true wealth was not gold or land, but unbreakable family bonds and simple, shared joy. This brought profound happiness to their isolated lives, a contentment defying societal norms. Their children, growing and thriving, remained a constant source of wonder. Though physically mocked, within their home they were simply cherished. Elias and Sarah dedicated their lives to nurturing them, ensuring their days brimmed with joy. This commitment gave them a renewed purpose, radiating quiet, profound delight. The wisdom they gained was immense. They learned to look beyond societal expectations and define their own good life. Acceptance, they understood, began within themselves, allowing them to fully embrace their children and each other. Their love, once a forbidden secret, evolved into something pure and fiercely protective, tested by fire and refined by time. It defied convention, proving that even from unconventional beginnings, a profound and meaningful existence could be carved. Past scars were present, but no longer defined their future. Instead, they served as silent reminders of their immense journey, leading to a peace once thought impossible. Their story, lived in quiet isolation, became an unspoken lesson. It was a powerful narrative of resilience, confronting dark fears, and finding light in unlikely places. Elias and Sarah's family, against all odds, endured. Their journey created a legacy of acceptance and an enduring testament to the human heart's boundless strength, ultimately finding unique happiness and true wealth in their resilient bond.